She's a bit dramatic. You
Actually.
do you. Yeah.
Listen, guys, this bit is about being unapologetically you, okay?
Hello!
Get heart-centered.
Everybody has a story. Like, it's a choice.
Ladies, how them bits? Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday.
I can't tell what tone and pace we're going with though. There's
I
no.
think they do that at Chili's now.
Oh,
First of all, I didn't hear Raina sing.
I was
or
really
our
confused on
guest.
what tone and like.
It's my motherfucking birthday, and people that are
Cha-cha-cha.
celebrating.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
That's good. You know what?
Cha-cha-cha.
Okay, we'll leave it there. You guys, I'm the oldest, the elder, okay, the wisest, the granny of the crew.
Like
and so
real
I just
old,
like real
Really
freaking
old.
real.
Real.
And so I just want to make sure that we embrace age and that you guys celebrate me.
Okay.
Respect your elders.
We are so thankful for your mature wisdom.
Oh,
So thankful. What
Thank you.
episode are we on, ladies?
Episode 19. It's crazy. We're on episode 19.
Wow.
And it's fun that we start with a little lighthearted Allie's birthday, happy birthday.
Before we drop the
son,
hammer.
Before we drop the motherfucking hammer. And it is a very heavy topic. We could probably do multiple episodes on this topic, and I think there are so many perspectives that we have. But we have brought in Mr. Charles Harvey.
Back.
He's my boyfriend. And he's here to just kind of chime in a little bit as we talk about trauma.
that's a big word. And I just first of all want to preface this whole episode by if you are experiencing anything, and again, I think we even talked about this on the episode we did on motherhood. If you are in something or you are not ready to listen, or it could be a trigger,
Correct.
turn us off.
And that's okay, guys.
And that's okay. Come on back another day. The other thing is, wherever you're at, the first thing we're going to suggest is go get help. So
Correct.
we are not therapists. We are here just to share our stories, to interact, to ask, to probe, to get different perspectives, and for you to take little bits and pieces from that and add it to your own life to hopefully live the best life you can. But the number one thing all of us have done is gotten help. So before we even dig into anything, we just want to make sure you guys understand, get help.
And
Okay?
trauma looks different for every single person. We are interviewing Chad today, but we also realize that we have a very female-based audience, I think. And we just wanted to share a little bit of diversity in our stories and just have you get a point of view from a man.
Now you're probably thinking, oh great, you just had Raina's boyfriend on. He's good to look at. That's great.
He is nice
yeah, that's
to look
fine.
at. Don't
We
look
all
too
know.
much, though.
But what you don't know, and the reason is because we've actually asked him to be bold enough to speak into the mic about some trauma that he went through, that if you hear this story, you'll say, okay, that's pretty big. But I think we want to go through the trajectory of what happened, what happened as a result, and then where you are now. And if we can kind of break it into three parts, guide us through what we are here to discuss, which is your trauma. And I know that that's such a loaded word. Like, oh, could I say your story instead? Because I kind of feel like your trauma.
Your
just
experience.
it puts such a huge, crazy label on it.
I like
So,
story a lot.
yeah, let's go with your story. Let's, Chad,
Trauma
let's,
is the belief attached to the story, so let's hear it.
yeah.
I'm excited.
So, Chad, take us back. What are we talking? A year?
So the bulk of it was freshman year of college. I mean, in general, growing up, I had a really, I think, average and good, childhood. My parents were teachers. I played sports. I was like above average in sports and pretty average in school. Nothing really crazy. Went off to school to be an art major and play soccer. Like the dream was to play Division I sports, so I got to do that. But pretty quickly into like my freshman year of college, it kind of a couple of series of events kind of snowballed and led me down this path that I had to dig myself out of eventually. So I went to play soccer, went to a school I wouldn't have ever gone to probably, but I went there for this soccer team I wanted to be on. It was an exciting up and coming team, and I got hurt right off the bat, like in September of my freshman year, and had to get surgery. So it kind of ended, like squashed the whole dream of playing soccer. And now I'm in this random school, literally in a town called Farmville in Virginia, Longwood University. which was a great school, for what it was. And now I was like, all right, I'm gonna focus on art. And that's my new thing, even though it was really just a backup. Like in my mind, I was going to be a professional athlete, and art was like something fun I could do later in life. And then all of a sudden, I'm kind of like, a little, lost and trying to like find my new focus. But pretty quickly after that, I had these kind of series of events go down that, like I said, I had to kind of dig myself out of eventually. One of my best friends killed himself in October of that year, and then so I haven't told the story in like a while, so I'm like trying to, get the order and everything right.
How long ago are we talking? Are we talking like, is this 2 years
2005,
ago? This is
2005, yeah.
5. So we're talking like
14
years ago. So 14 years ago, your best friend kills himself.
Yeah, in October, and that really shook me up. Like I said, I hadn't really had any, lost like grandparents and, distant relatives, but no one that was like super close, where it was something kind of unexpected, and this whole side of psychological issues that I hadn't really been exposed to that deeply. And it kind of shook me and a lot of my friends up, and we're kind of trying to get through that together, and from long distance, because now we're all off at different colleges, and we're all kind of going through this together, and you feel kind of isolated a little bit when something like that happens, when no one around knows the person or knows what's going on. So yeah, I was dealing with that. And probably the craziest part of that year was New Year's Day, 2006. A completely random crime. My dad's brother and his wife and their 2 daughters were all murdered on New Year's morning, and it was just a super brutal thing. The details was pretty public. It was like in the news and on like some crime shows, and there was songs written about him. My uncle's a big musician, and yes, it was really public, and it kind of like overwhelmed me.
So again, you're living afar. You get a phone call. Like, how did you hear about this?
Yeah, I was on the way home. I had gone to New York City to see a band for New Year's Eve. It was on the drive home, and my serotonin levels were already depleted a little bit from partying for 3 days in New York City. And I got this call, and I immediately rushed over there, and the other houses had been on fire, and they weren't sure what was going on. And then while I was there, they kind of realized that it was murder. It was a murder, homicide. It wasn't just like a house fire like they had initially thought. And that really messed with my head. But I was off at school, so I noticed when I went back to school, it was almost this bubble that I was it was almost an alternate reality where I didn't have to deal with it. But then I'd go home in an hour to see my family, and it was just the whole city knew, and it was very public, and you have everyone rallied around us. It was we're really grateful for everyone that kind of supported us, but you couldn't really get away from it. But school was my escape, which at the time felt like an advantage. I was able to kind of block stuff out there, but in hindsight, it probably wasn't very very healthy for my processing of it. So.
Well, school was your normal, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
every time you had to travel back, you would have to relive this, be a part of it, be in communication, where then you could go back to school and just go back to, quotes, your normal life. But
Right.
This is where I think the next phase kind of kicks in, which is what happened next, and how
Yeah.
did you mentally start to go through that?
So, my initial instinct and my reaction was oh my God, life can end at any moment. You have to live every day it's your last day. I'm not gonna come home and do history homework. All my friends are partying. I'm gonna enjoy these, these social, these memories that are being created, as opposed to sitting in my dorm room and studying a subject that, I'm not even that interested in. And at the time, it made complete sense, and I felt like I was, really living. But it was really, this kind of facade that I was using to, protect myself from having to process anything. So I think I started forming some bad habits. I was hanging around people that, it was a party group that, it's if you're there to party, you got best friends every single day, and you stop partying, you don't hear from them as often. But so I started hanging out with these people that, there's just a lot of kids in college having fun. It wasn't anything bad really, but it led to a series of bad decisions maybe, and I started dating a girl that probably had also been through like some stuff that we probably related on a little bit, and then kind of the to round out my freshman year in college, over at Easter break that year, she killed herself, and so then it was like just bam, 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 bam. But by that one, I was almost like numb to it. I was more like irritated with the whole situation, and I didn't really like emotionally cry or process any of that. I kind of just blocked that out of like survival, I guess. But yeah, it was a crazy year, and in my mind, it was just kind of put it all behind me and really live every day like it's my last. And I felt like that was what I needed to do at that time.
So what part did you start kind of transitioning into realizing, a lot of stuff kind of has gone down, and I always kind of use the analogy of that it's like a bomb exploding, and then years later, months later, you realize you were hit with a ton of shrapnel.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might not have been right in the explosion, but you kind of find yourself picking apart. You're like, man, I just got blown apart too, or I've got bits of shrapnel in
Mm-hmm.
myself. So at what point did you start going, oh, whoa, my behavior is now spinning out of control? And so how did that story kind of dictate the next phase of your life?
Yeah, so I was, I think that I had this, not intentionally or consciously, but I think I had this mindset of like I was a victim, and no one else could really understand what I was going through, so I just would I kind of just had this air about me that felt like I was stronger than like anyone I knew, because I'd been through this crazy shit that like no one could really relate to, and but I didn't really do anything. I didn't earn like that feeling or anything like that. It was just something that happened to me that I was kind of, I was just playing this victim card, and it made me make some decisions that weren't like in the moment horrible decisions, but down the road it was just like a series of events that kind of tripped me up to the point where I found myself in this hole that I had to dig myself out of all of a sudden. And it's literally it took about 12 years to dig myself out of it, but over those 12 years you wouldn't really notice that. I think that people say like these success stories, a lot of the time it's like this person hit rock bottom, and then like this light bulb went off and they just all of a sudden figured it out, but I think it's, you hit rock bottom and realize you have to, make some change, but that change isn't just overnight. It's years of, building and like training yourself to, think a different way and act a different way.
Do you have a low moment? Like you keep alluding to this deep dark hole that you were in, but yet you haven't really gone there. So I'm just curious, what does the hole look like, and then how did you kind of rise above?
Yeah, so it was basically some minor legal things. It really wasn't that crazy, but it was some legal stuff that I'd never really encountered, and it's stuff that I'm sure lots of college kids go through, but it was the first time I really run into the wall like that, and I was like, oh shit, like I've let like my parents down, I've let like and since all of the stuff with my family had just gone on that year, or the prior year, that was in the news. So all of a sudden now my family's friends know like that I'm partying in college and getting in trouble, and and that was what really I think shook me a little bit. I was like, oh damn, they were awesome parents, and I'm worried that I've embarrassed them or made them feel like that they like failed when they didn't, and then I was like, all right, so I basically left that school, went back to the year off, got involved in like some small businesses like that were promoting the city. I kind of felt like I was helping promote my hometown that I grew up in, that I kind of maybe tarnished my family's name in a little bit. And so I think, for me, like promoting tourism and local small businesses was a way to redeem myself. And I did this kind of small business thing for about 8 years in Richmond, and also went back to school at the same time for business, because I realized the art degree that I, in my mind, had envisioned it wasn't really going to support me. So I was like, I need to get a different trajectory for my school, for my work, and just kind of how I move forward.
Share a little bit about the volunteering and stuff that you did.
Oh yeah, so obviously like my parents were terrified after all that stuff happened, and worried that I was gonna be dealing with they didn't know what was gonna happen. So I was a freshman off at college. My little brother was at home. They were with him every day, but I was, they weren't gonna convince me to come home or anything. So, but I did agree to go to some counseling, and that was fine. I think I don't think I was in a mental place to really get anything out of it. But she recommended this camp called Comfort Zone Camp that was initially created for like 9/11 family members, for people that went through something crazy, like kids that wouldn't be able to really. There's no textbook answer for how to deal with something like losing your parents in 9/11. So this camp basically brings kids together who've been through traumas, and it allows you to see like that there's all these people with crazy stories, and like that person's story is crazier than mine, but they think yours is crazier than theirs, and then you it brings you back to reality where you're not separated from everyone like you maybe felt like you were.
Well, don't you feel like trauma? I've just been sitting here just entranced by everything. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open, especially as a man. I know we live in a society that tells men, don't talk about that, don't talk about your feelings. And I could see you kind of try to break through that barrier. So I appreciate that you were willing to do that. It takes balls.
It's not comfortable.
Right, and that's where we thrive, right?
Should practice this a few times.
But the trauma itself, the memories of the experiences can be fucking haunting, and that's what's so isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And how did it make you feel to be in a place where you were like, oh, maybe I'm not alone. Okay.
It was crazy. And a lot of it was also just like they made you do these like exercises. Like I thought in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to a freaking camp and sitting around a bonfire and like singing songs and like praying and like I'm not doing that. Like I was like just not into it. And my parents would like bribe me, like we'll get you a new cell phone. Mm-hmm. But I went to it and like 90% was like just fun stuff, and there's like 10% of just hardcore like processing stuff. And it doesn't fix it though. It forces you to really like feel the feelings and like deeply feel them. And but like you said, with men, kind of rambling here, but I remember my dad when we were going through some of these like services, because it was such a big thing. My uncle's a big musician, so they had these services where local musicians would get together and play music, and my dad was always like the guy kind of cracking jokes, and like in my mind it like made me like mad at him. I was like, I don't know if it was anger, but it was like I was like upset with him. And but looking back, it's like he was the oldest sibling. He's like the dad, and he was the one that was taking over the estate. Like he felt like he needed to be like this strong one, and his way to deal with it was humor. But at the moment, I was really kind of upset with it, and.
I think the interesting thing is we all process differently, right? So whether you're female or male, whatever you've experienced, is that you're going to have your own process. And that's kind of what I wanted you to kind of loop around to was, I know that you kind of uprooted, you moved to Colorado, you found yourself in the mountains, you're snowboarding. I mean,
share that though.
That's
that
kind of,
itself, yeah.
For me, I feel like that might have been part of your healing journey.
You did Eat, Pray, Love for a man.
Yeah, like that was exactly where I was kind of going, is I was like, I feel like you kind of took the next step, and that's what I wanted you to talk about.
Yeah, and the last thing that I thought that I meant to get to when Lindsay had asked that question, that like feeling it though, I think is so important, because like I think it's like everyone knows that you have like the option, you can become a victim, or you can choose to grow from something. And like some of the strongest people I know are people who have been through traumatic stuff, but the ones that are the ones that really dove into those feelings and felt them. So I think when you dive into that deep pain and trauma, it's where you can find like some of the most growth that you'll ever find. And so many people, especially like you said, men, don't want to process that stuff, and it's not cool, it's not comfortable, and you're not supposed to like show that weakness, especially like the head of a household or something. But I think that's actually, as someone that people might look up to as a head of a household, it's actually, for me at least, it was where I think I found my most of my growth I found was from that. It was one of those situations too where it's like the person was before that, like I'm most embarrassed about, like, because he hadn't been through anything, and I would never want to go through that stuff again, or but I think part of it's just the mindset. I just kind of stay in my mindset, like at least I used it in a way that made me better from it. At least I was able to find some sort of silver lining in this chaotic couple of years.
So my next question then would be about, I have so many questions. Ladies, first of all, a question for you. How attractive is it to hear a man talk about
So
to know yourself and to become your most authentic self? Just saying. Okay. Not saying, just saying. Triggers. I want to know, because triggers happen, meaning just something, a memory can be, can be literally, quite literally triggered. So in a new relationship, with somebody that has kids and you have experienced massive loss in your life, which is a no-brainer, can create some abandonment stuff. How do you deal with possible triggers that may come up when you love someone, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's tough. It's almost like inevitable that you're gonna have to kind of hit some of these things head on eventually. Like if you're dating for this long. But yeah, I think part of it's just realizing not everyone's had the same experiences that I have, and having to like kind of bite my tongue every once in a while and have patience that, I spent years kind of like processing stuff, and I haven't figured anything out like with that. It's just like I was saying, it's been a constant kind of growing, decade for me from that. And I find, especially like with her ex-husband, and some of the things that I feel like inevitably get passed on to the kids from both parents. And then also my history of being around people that were involved in drugs and different kind of chaos like that, I guess. I need to sometimes, I think it's hard for me to always remember like that a lot of them, the kids especially, haven't ever seen any of that, and they don't understand it, and I can't always just be as cold as I want to be to someone that's to me is not someone that I want to even and be involved with. But a lot of that's if you've been cheated on before, the next relationship you go into, it's like you're bringing this kind of resentment towards almost that type of person, like a girlfriend, or even like whatever it is. And so I think with that, that's been a little tough. I'm still figuring out the best way to deal with that, on a day-to-day basis.
And where do you find solitude now?
In Colorado, honestly. I think with triggers and things like that, I spent all of my 20s, it felt like, working full-time and going to school full-time, and so I was running so hard, and that kind of blocked off like all of my groups of friends that were great guys and girls, and but I was just in a point where I kind of screwed myself, more or less in a few situations where I need to be better than average. I had to really be on my A game for years to get back to where I felt like I should have been. If all that stuff hadn't happened, where I should have been in my mid-20s, where I should have been in my late 20s, and it took me until my late 20s, my early 30s to feel like I finally have kind of caught back up to where I should have been. And moving out here was that, and it was just things lined up with finishing school and kind of the way that the businesses were going, where I could kind of step away and had some money in my pocket to kind of come out here and spend a few months like clearing my head, without, I'm sure if you have like a close group of friends from back home, when you go back home and hang out with those people, you must feel like your high school self again, or that old personality comes out, which is great. And I love like, those groups of people to always be, I say my best friends, but for me to get out of what I was going through, I had to really get away from all of it and have like a completely clear slate just to figure out my next move. I was only planning on being here for about 6 months and then going home to Richmond. And I just started seeing like all these opportunities out here that, I didn't have all those distractions. And I don't want to anyway phrase it in a way like my friends were bad distractions, but it put me back in a mental space that I was in years ago, which I had grown out of. And it was a weakness on my part, I think. I noticed I couldn't fall back into that circle and still keep all the growth that I had done. And I noticed that it stuck around more when I was away from it. And I could still call them and FaceTime them and go visit. But when I was out here in the mountains and, I don't know if it was so much the Colorado and snowboarding and that stuff, or if it was just being just so far away and feeling like I'm on my own now. And it's everything's on me. I don't have like, you don't just walk around your hometown and be like, oh, that's you're part of the Harvey family, right? Or part of the Harvey family that had all that stuff happen. And it's like this whole brand new slate, and it's an opportunity to kind of reinvent yourself, it felt like. So
I just have one more, like just one more thing before I think we wrap this up, but I'm wondering, what is your perspective now on life because of what you went through? I think when you see such severe death and go through these type of traumatic things where you dealt with suicide and murder, things like that, have you had time to reflect, or do you think that you snowboard a little bit freer, love a bit harder, hold things a bit tighter? Do you get a bit worried easier? Like, what is your process now going through those? Do you think as a man you've kind of sunk in a little bit deeper into the greatness of life because you've seen how easy it'll be taken away?
I mean, I think my dad and I never said I loved you or like hugged each other really until after the stuff with our family happened. And that's just like a very obvious one, but it was just the whole family thing. And I knew he loved me. He did so much, like spent so much time to help me. And similar with my mom, but she was always like kissing me and saying she loved me and all that stuff. But it's just with me and my dad, it wasn't really like that, and never felt weird. But after it was like, oh, I gotta say this like all the time now. And with my brother, and moving away, like my parents always say it, like we've gotten so much closer, even though I live across the country now, and it's because I want to talk to them regularly, and I think Raina's stories help because she's always like filming me when I'm not expecting it, and they're like, we see more of you than we wouldn't talk to you for like a week straight when you were living 5 miles from us, and now we talk to you every couple of days at the longest. So I feel like it's brought me and my family closer together, me and my friends. I think that some of the baggage still is I'm not as open with people, or it takes me a while to really be myself around people, and it's not necessarily like a shyness, it's more of just like a introverted kind of, I think, protective thing that I have up. And but the people that I am close with, I think I'm very close with, but I find that I don't have as many friends as I used to have. So I still, I don't think that I'm where I need to be, and I found myself recently kind of feeling like I've gotten to this point where I got, my job is just like I'm doing robotic spine and brain surgery, which my parents are like,
hot.
what? Like,
say that one more time. What do you mean?
and so it's just like, it's I don't know. It's crazy. Like, I was feeling like, okay, I've like gotten out of that hole. Like I'm good now. And then I caught myself like, in just like little arguments every once in a while with Raina or like the girls. I'll say something or do something like that wasn't cool. Like so. And I'm starting to thinking like, maybe there's still like some residual, I guess, effects that I have from all that trauma that I haven't, I think I was dealing with these big issues, and now that I feel like I've gotten like the job, the girlfriend, like like the friends and community that I've kind of been like searching for over a decade, I'm noticing some of these smaller things that are just like, I want to continually try and be better in everything that I can, and I think that's that's what I'm noticing biggest now is those little things where I'm like, why do I like respond that way? That like when she's like cracking pistachio nuts with her mouth the other day, I'm like, oh my god, like,
He yelled at me.
please stop. Like,
But my question was it easy to let Raina in?
I think it
And
was.
it doesn't matter that she's sitting here.
Yeah.
Pretend like I'm not.
Yeah, it was so easy. No, she was different than every other person I ever did. No, I think it was.
I knew she was the one. Yes, her.
I think I talked about in that last podcast that I was on when it was, we lived like an hour away, so we were forced into this taking it slow kind of, first 4 or 5 months where, it, for a number of circumstances, it made it easier to, I think, form this like really good like bond with Raina than it would have if, we did live right down the road from each other, and I had approached it the way I approached, other relationships when there's no, barrier to keep you from hanging out. That new exciting relationship is tough to not just like dive headfirst into like the first week. So I think there's a lot of circumstances that, and that's just one of them, I think, that made it easy for us to, form like a really strong foundation before we got to the point where we were talking about moving in or.
And I think it's really good, and thank you for sharing everything, but like it's little things that I want just to acknowledge. Both, like, it's hard also on Raina, she's sitting here with her partner sharing a story, but I love that you guys just humanized a relationship that from the outside could be like, oh my god, that's amazing, they look so happy, everything's great, I want a relationship like that. Like, Chad got mad at you for crunching your pistachios.
Yeah.
Like, you guys just admitted, Chad's like, oh, we do bicker and all these things.
Yeah.
Guys, that is reality. And then the great piece is to say, this is what I went through, and maybe I do still need to work on some things to kind of make something that could be amazing even better, right? Or how could I be better to better serve my partner, the kids, myself? And I just think that is amazing, and I couldn't even imagine. Like, it's what a story. So thank you.
Yeah.
Your mindset
Now-
around everything is so beautiful in the way that you're even able to identify. I mean, sometimes Jake breathes, you know, and we're so guilty of that with our partners, right? But you are able to self-reflect and go, okay, I don't think this has to do with the fact that she's chewing the pistachio. It's something about that I'm maybe watching a TV show. Like, what were you doing that noise was triggering and distracting you from? And then what memory did that trigger? And the fact that you're able to, instead of just being like, stop fucking crunching your pistachio. I mean, that's what you did, I don't know. But
You talk about his mindset a lot, and I will say, as we've talked about our mindset and everything like that, like, he is the reason why I've, signed up with a mindset coach and forcing myself to slow down, because I think, everyone's trauma looks different, and me coming from a marriage where I did have to snap and I had to stand up for myself, and I, then being single and then getting into a relationship with someone who we have, spent the last years being single and living our own lives, and then having to mash that together, not knowing what that looks like. It's been, I think, a mind fuck for both of us.
I think a big thing with
To be
that too,
honest.
when I haven't ever told a girlfriend to I never tried to tell her to do it. I was maybe backed her when she brought it up. She's already has so much stuff going for her. It's I just see this, she's already so far ahead of so many people that are her age that, it's why not keep your foot on the gas pedal and just substantially separate yourself from the rest, and she's already done that to an extent, but, I also want I see it myself too. I want her to, call me out, because I don't want to get to where I'm comfortable. I'm my job's good, my girlfriend's good, I got a cool apartment. I'm cruising because I want to still have that fight. Maybe it's partly being an athlete growing up. I want to have that, coach or someone behind me, still push me. We need more out of you, And but I think bringing it back around to the trauma thing, it's I think it's a big thing, but just keep grinding. Just because I think you're the varying severity of your trauma, even if it's not your fault, it's something that just happens to you that sucks. It's going to take longer to really get out of it, I think. And I think some people, when you see these success stories, you're you see just the pretty pictures of them, but you don't realize it's been a decade of putting blinders on and just going to work to get yourself out of that. And it's not necessarily your fault. It could just be bad luck, and you got screwed and had something crazy happen to you, and now you got to spend all your 20s digging out of it. But it's way more worth it to do that than to kind of let things happen to you and kind of just let the dice fall where they may.
that's what I was going to ask, if you thought, hashtag worth it. Do you think your life, I mean, I know it's kind of a wild question, but what do you think your life would look like if you had just never worked on it and you had just committed to keep sweeping shit under the rug?
It would not have been as amazing as it is. Honestly, even the plan that I had, I probably wouldn't have been, a lifetime soccer player. In all honesty, looking back on it, maybe I could have, and then if I hadn't, I would have fallen into graphic design, and maybe a freelance graphic artist, which would have been cool. Nothing, this bad about that, but something crazy traumatic happening all of a sudden shakes things up so much that it also opens up a ton of new doors that you might not have ever even had available to you, previously. And so, it's even though something could be horrible, that you can still find silver linings in it and things to focus on to keep your mindset right, to where you can have a light at the end of the tunnel that you can be going for,
So do you think, in your opinion, that there's a choice, not in having trauma, right? Because shit can happen to you. Do you think there is a choice in choosing how you operate going forward, knowing once you're responsible for the knowledge that you have trauma in any facet? Do you think there is a choice in how somebody lives with said trauma?
100%. And it's not something you can just do yourself. I physically had to move across the country and get away from, stuff that, wouldn't have necessarily landed me in jail or in the ground, but it wouldn't have allowed me to probably grow to where I have, you know, and it's completely mindset. And I spent 2 years having shitty mindset. Like I thought that I had been shown the light, and in actuality, it was really like putting me in a very precarious situation where it was like at any moment it could all come crumbling down, and it did. And but that also gave me, like I said, like that gave me so much deep feelings that it allowed me to have, I think this, for me, it feels like incredible growth, you know, over, you know, all of my 20s and now into my 30s, and I feel like it's been like, I've just been on a roll and it's still going. It feels like I don't think it's time yet. I'm not like ready to plateau.
That's
I love that.
amazing.
Oh, there's nothing
Guys,
better than
I don't want to
He's taken. He's taken.
Fine.
All right.
Fine, she said.
Fine.
Okay.
I will say, I tell him, I've told him multiple times, I say, thank God I met you now.
Yes.
Because the Chad that he had to be to go through all of that, I would have been in a spiral and in a shitty relationship like I was before. Like, I'm so fucking thankful that I met him when I did, and that he has the mindset that he does because of everything. Like, the universe is not a dummy, right? Like, it put us through everything we needed to go through to place us here at the right time.
I absolutely love that.
You
All
have to keep your
right.
eyes open for it. That's the big thing.
Mushy, mushy, it is time. Ladies.
It's time for a bit of tea.
Chad, will you stay for a bit of tea?
You're the only person that's not used an accent
You
yet.
have to use the
He was about
accent.
to. We jumped on
I'm
it.
sorry.
He was about to.
I lost it now. You
Look,
saw it coming.
I was watching it and I was like, yeah. It was like watching the child speak for the first time. He was like getting comfortable. And I was like, you bitches are about to trigger the fuck out of him and ruin it. And then right when he was about to say it, you're like, come on.
I know, I was trying to think of a Harry Potter line and now I lost it.
Damn it.
All right, but
A bit of tea.
Let's put a tea, Chad. You stay for a bit, yeah? Okay, so let's go. Raina.
Today's bit of tea is by Marie_Catherine.
what's up, girl?
Hi.
Hey, you're gonna get some lady bit swag. Check your slot.
Check your flats.
The slot talk
I have
is
to say, I
distracting.
have to piggyback on the slot.
Okay. Her question or bit of tea is one tip on how to master your mindset.
Ooh, that is an absolutely perfect
How
line.
applicable.
And maybe let's start, Lynn's, you start, and then we'll end with Chad.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, master your mindset. Control the trigger. So headphones in, blinders on, listen to personal development, self-help books, music that makes you happy, anything other than the negativity that goes on between your two ears.
Amazing. Mine is going to be don't give up. So I think that we can try, and then we take 2 steps back. We try, take 1 step back, and then you're going to notice that maybe you made a little bit of an inch. And so whatever it is, just keep pushing forward, and that your mindset will grow. So it's just not expecting the mile, maybe be comfortable with the inch.
Mine would be, I thought I had a great mindset. Like, I'm great, I'm happy, I don't need all of these things, but I found that I was very wrong, and mine would be to get help if you need it. Mindset help if you need it, because I didn't realize I needed it until I was spiraling out of control in my mind.
Yep.
And then got help.
Love it.
For someone like me, I have to have some sort of structure or schedule to where I can check things off, like some sort of like either a real list or an imaginary list. So I feel like I'm accomplishing something. Like when I'm in my like worst headspace, if I can at least like have a checklist for the day, and so I'm gonna get up and work out, I'm gonna have like a juice, I'm gonna, then I'm gonna go like vacuum out my car, and then, do my taxes. Like it doesn't have to be anything like cool, like, but just like that if I can like get a few things done, it builds me up a little bit to where I feel like now I'm in a positive headspace. When I moved to Colorado for a month, I didn't work for a few months, and I got like bummed out as hell. And I thought I was taking a break and just letting my mind unwind, but really I was putting myself in a bad headspace because I wasn't accomplishing anything. So I think just pick some easy things to accomplish, and it can get you out of the hole.
That's amazing.
Love it.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you again for your knowledge, your wisdom, your everything you brought to the table today.
Thanks for helping me
Mr.
through.
Chad.
Literally everything you brought to the
Everything you
table.
brought to the table, including those muscles. All right, ladies, take care of this.
And we did it.
Choice.
Hey Lady Bits, thanks again for tuning in and listening to our podcast. The way this community really grows and supports one another is simply by word of mouth. We would really appreciate it if you could head over and rate and review our podcast on iTunes, then go check out our social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and go like, share, comment, and subscribe to all of it. This community is really to support women, educate women, and also just to help you find your voice. So until next time, take care of the bits you've got.